Hello, and welcome to another lecture with Professor Dennis. This one is on the elements of a narrative. I would like you to take a moment to pause and think about a storyline you really enjoyed. It could be something you've read or a fictional TV show or movie. All of these items really are a story. What did you think of the storyline? What stands out to you the most? And what really captivated you with this story? What components do you think you might need in your own stories to keep your audience's attention? I've included a hyperlink for you at a free source that has a strong explanation of what a personal narrative is and what elements you need to include in your own writing. I'd like you to follow this source and read its contents. Take notes as you go so that you can reflect on what elements you will need for your own narrative. When you're done with the reading and the notes, come back and finish watching this segment. Welcome back. From the reading, you should know that a personal narrative is informal. That means that you will have the personal pronoun I, as well as possible slang terms. The purpose of this style of writing is to inform, but on what? That is where you, the author, get to decide. Normally, this style includes some sort of a moral, and the story itself acts as an example of what to do or what not to do for this specific moral. The piece itself will include descriptions of a person, a scene, and/or an event in detail and in chronological order. Personal narratives are considered non-fiction. That means that they are based on true people and events. Even so, you do include elements of a story to be able to depict your message. In addition, the personal narrative will follow a structure for a specific type of essay. Let's dive a little deeper into understanding some of these items. Elements of a story as taught to every student in the kindergarten through 12th grade standards includes exposition, rising action, climax, falling action, and resolution. Well, that's great, but how do we fit the structure of a personal narrative with these items? For a personal narrative, you want to start with the purpose or scope. This is often referred to as your thesis statement. This is also your exposition part of the story that covers the background knowledge your reader will need to understand your story. Oftentimes, this includes your initial conflict that throws your reader fully into your story. For your body paragraphs, you will have your rising action that pushes the reader to see why this is such a key and pivotal focus for your purpose. The rising action is normally full of instances where the main character, which is usually you, is reacting to everything that is thrown their way. The rising action will cap when the climax, where everything comes to a head. The climax is often where the main character, again, for personal narratives, this is normally you, goes from reacting to everything that is thrown their way to making a crucial decision that will change the outcome of the story. This is followed by the falling action, which is a direct result of the decision that was made by the main character. The falling action typically does not take very long and usually leads to the resolution, or in this case, the conclusion with the moral of the story. The moral of your story should tie in some way to your purpose or scope. It is not a direct restatement of your thesis, but it does reflect your thesis or purpose in some way. Before we move on, I do have a pro tip I'd like to share with you. Do not use a 5-paragraph essay. If you find that you only have 5 paragraphs, you are not writing. You are composing a piece that is meant for a test. Please, break yourself of that habit now. Instead, for the body paragraphs, think of this as a story. When you read a story, each character receives their own paragraph when they perform an action or speak. Your piece should reflect this aspect of writing as well. For more on dialogue, be sure to watch the segment on how to properly insert and punctuate your dialogue in stories. For your paper, you have a personal narrative that's about 2 to 3 pages in length. That means you need to get to the bottom of 2 pages. 1.5 page does not count. 1 page and 2 lines does not count. Bottom of 2 pages, possibly onto the top of the third, maybe down to the bottom of the third. That would be even better. And it needs to be about a time that you overcame adversity, or maybe that you had to join a group, band, choir, track, football. Your narrative has to have all of the elements of a narrative as covered in the lecture. Again, the paper must be a minimum of 2 full pages in MLA format. Try to have a narrative that's geared toward an underclassman as advice for them as they proceed in the same high school or middle school you attended. If you could help them out, what would you tell them? When you set to work planning out your personal narrative, try to ask yourself these key questions. Who are you writing this paper for? What moral do you want to present to your reader? What story do you think will best help you display this moral to your reader? Use these questions to help select your topic for this paper. I have a word of caution. The personal narrative is often where students will have their first hiccup of the term. Why? Because some students have lived through harder experiences than others. Some have lived through times that would be more than a powerful personal narrative. And some of those students try to tackle these stories before they're ready. There is a time and a place for your story. I promise you that. I have a personal narrative style piece that I wrote in my 30s. The event took place when I was 17. Why so long to bring this piece to fruition? Because there was a lot of healing that needed to happen surrounding that event before I could talk about it. I have a novel floating around in my head waiting to be written. It's a personal narrative style piece. The event happened in 2017. I'm still not to the point where I can do more than outline ideas for it. Why? Because the loss of a loved one is a hard item to face in writing. It is not only your stories that are powerful to your readers, it is your writing that is powerful for you and where you're at on your own life's path. Please be mindful of this when you select your topic. If you come to the page and you find that the emotions are too raw, that the event is too real when you try to put it to paper, that you can't make it past line 1 because of a wave of memory and emotion, please select a different topic. Save what you have. One day you will be ready to face that giant with your head held high and a box of tissues at hand, and that story will be powerful and it will change lives, even if the only life it changes is yours when you set it to paper at last. But for now, be kind to yourself. Acknowledge the feelings and honor what your mind and body are telling you. If you are struggling with your topic, please pick one that is easier to write about. It was John Dufresne who told me at a writer's conference that anyone who has lived to the age of 10 has enough content to write for the rest of their lives. If you are watching this lecture, then you certainly met the criteria for having enough content to write for the rest of your life. It's okay to shift your focus and pick a topic that your mind will more easily allow you to write about. Final tips and suggestions to help you find success with this assignment. Look at the due dates for all final papers. Schedule to meet with the Writing Center sometime between the paper workshop and the final due date. And if you do go, take each of the following to your scheduled appointment. All peer reviews for that paper, your most recent draft of the paper, a description of the paper assignment, paper parameters as explained in class, and the correct paper rubric. Always schedule as soon as possible because the Writing Center can book up quickly. Sometimes at some campuses, it can be booked up as much as 3 weeks out. So the sooner you schedule, the better off you are. I hope you found this lecture helpful. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please do not hesitate to reach out. Thanks so much.